Go in the room, sit down, and then he pulls out an address book and then just kind of proceeds to work his way through this address book, phoning number after number. Must have made about 20 phone calls, and every call was exactly the same. It would go, dial the number, ring, someone answers, and he'd say, all right, seen our kid. All right, see you later. Hang up. And then we kind of got to this street corner, this junction, and we just stood there. And then a few minutes later, from the opposite direction, come this group of lads, four of them, and one of them, the kind of leader, was wearing these blue tracksuit bottoms and a red flight jacket, and he just had the most incredible walk coming towards us, like bowling down the middle of the road. And I said to Noel, "Who's that?" And he just said, "That's our kid."
20 years old this month. Can you believe it? Definitely Maybe, that's the album. Went on to sell 8 million copies worldwide and set the band off on a career that you could probably describe as uneven before finally falling apart with the siblings, the Gallagher brothers, embroiled in a fistfight backstage at the Rock en Seine Festival in France in the summer of 2009. Finally, perhaps inevitably next summer, the band will reform for a UK and European tour, the first time that thousands of people will finally get their chance to see Oasis play live. The photographer Chris Floyd has definitely seen them before. He was sent to Manchester to shoot the fledgling band in May 1994, just 3 months before their album came out, their debut record, and it became a photo shoot that really helped define the band's identity. Chris joins me now. Chris, thanks very much for coming on. Just tell me the story of how you met them. You were sent to shoot this young Manchester band, but you didn't know who they were.
No, hello. Thanks for having me on. It was May 94, and it was a bank holiday Monday. It was the second bank holiday in May, and I was asked to go to Manchester to shoot this band. And at that time, I hadn't really heard of them. I had actually heard the Supersonic on the radio, but I didn't a lot. It was on the radio a lot at the time, but I didn't know that song was by a band called Oasis. It was just a song that was always on. So anyway, I went to Manchester. It was a bank holiday. From London, it took about 19 hours to get there because, like all bank holidays for all eternity, there's engineering works. So I got there at some point in the mid-afternoon, took a taxi to this hotel in Fallowfield in South Manchester. And I had just been told to go to the hotel and ask for a man by the name of Noel Gallagher, not knowing who he was. There was no context provided. It was just go to this hotel and ask for Noel Gallagher. So I get there. The receptionist sort of sends me down the corridor to his room. And it was one of those sort of Edwardian, was once probably quite a grand Edwardian house that was now a kind of 10-room hotel. It was pretty bleak. Get to the room, knock on the door, and this guy answers the door. I have to say, the room was so small, you could have banged the door on the wall on the opposite side of the room if you'd opened it all the way. He doesn't really say much. He just says, "All right," in his dry, downbeat Mancunian accent. Go in the room, sit down, and then he pulls out an address book and then just kind of proceeds to work his way through this address book, phoning number after number. Must have made about 20 phone calls, and every call was exactly the same. It would go, dial the number, ring, someone answers, and he'd say, "All right, seen our kid. All right, see you later." Hang up, and then do it all over again. And as I've said previously, when I've talked about this before, I actually grew up 2 miles from Wisley. So yeah, I'm from the south, and I didn't know what our kid was. I didn't know what it meant. What is it? What is our kid? What is an our kid? Anyway, so he doesn't explain anything, and then after 20 phone calls, he just says, "Come on, let's go." We get up, leave the room, and we just seemed to walk for miles and miles and miles. And then we kind of got to this street corner, this junction, and we just stood there. And then a few minutes later, from the opposite direction, come this group of lads, four of them, and one of them, the kind of leader, was wearing these blue tracksuit bottoms and a red flight jacket, and he just had the most incredible walk coming towards us, like bowling down the middle of the road. And I said to Noel, "Who's that?" And he just said, "That's our kid." And of course, that was Liam. And at that point, it became apparent that this Noel guy was in the band as well. Up to that point, I thought he might have been their manager.
What were they like to work with as a photographer? You took them to Main Road, didn't you, for a photo shoot and some other shots along the way? But were they easy to work with?
Yeah, they were great. I mean, you think about it, Liam kind of led the way. He's incredibly curious. He wanted to know everything about me. Where you from? You know, what football team do you support? I'm an Arsenal supporter, so that didn't go down very well. And, you know, it was just question as we walked along. And Noel would be kind of to one side, just tutting quietly under his breath at like how annoying his brother was. And then we get to Main Road and we just kind of hang around. And then at one point, I think a kind of caretaker, proper old school Beano type caretaker came along and tried to shoo us away from you know, because we're obviously out on this at this Main Road stadium. It's private property. So the guy's like, "Go on, clear off, you lot," you know. And then, you know, kind of ironic that a year or two later they're selling out, you know, 30,000 tickets a night for the place.
You talked about briefly the relationship between Noel and Liam, but did you pick up much on it then, or I suppose you picked up more of it later when you followed the band more?
Oh no, it was apparent at the time. It was just, you know, just that irritation that all siblings have with each other. You know, all siblings have that kind of love-hate thing, don't they? Where, you know, if you know, they're allowed to attack each other as much as they like, but if an outsider attacks them in any way, then you spring to their defense, don't you? You know, if anyone had a go at my sister, I'd stand up for her, but I'm allowed to have a go at her.
And I think they put you on the guest list for their show at the Marquee in London. Unfortunately, a venue that's now gone. But what was the atmosphere around the band like then, and the successive months in those years, really? Because they were, it's hard to remember now, 30 years ago, but they were big.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. So they played at the Marquee maybe a week or two after that shoot I did with them. And so I went, you know, it was the first time I'd seen them. I went down and it was absolutely amazing. It was, you know, I was 25. I'm the same age roughly as Noel. You know, I was 24, 25 then. And, you know, up until that point, that early 90s period, you know, that we had a recession. It was a very bleak period, you know, 90 to 93. And I remember seeing it, going home after seeing it at the Marquee, and I felt like, I felt like that was the night that my life had actually began, in terms of being exposed to things things being made by people of my generation, you know.
And the music was exciting.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was just the wall of sound, you know, the very trebly sound. You know, there's not a lot of bass in their sound, so it's this very trebly guitars, you know, that kind of hurt.
And the atmosphere at those gigs, the atmosphere around the band at the time?
Exciting. I mean, it was just they were the next big thing. You know, they were massive. It was just what everyone was into, because, you know, it's an incredibly exponential curve, sorry, them going from, you know, being unknown to incredibly well known in 6 months, I'd say.
And I think you also went on that first album tour. Did that whole excitement continue? Did it become a bit of a rock and roll lifestyle thing?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't go on that tour. I saw them a few times. I remember going to see them in Brighton just between Christmas and New Year, December 94. So they played the Brighton Centre. So they were, you know, which is still quite an intimate venue. And I went with a friend of mine, and he got quite drunk in the afternoon. And we went to the gig. They came on and they opened with the song Rock and Roll Star. My friend fell asleep. And then for the first time ever, I think they did an encore, which was Rock and Roll Star, which was when my friend woke up. So when he woke up, he thought they'd just done one song and gone off.
Will you be in the queue to see them next summer if you can buy a ticket, or might you even shoot them again?
I'd love to shoot them again. Who knows if that will happen? A very good friend of mine, Simon Emmett, shot the photo of him that they put out today. So I'm chuffed for him for doing that. I would love to see them. I have a 15-year-old daughter who is absolutely obsessed with them, and also plays the guitar and can play everything,
Well,
all of the solos. So I have to get in the queue for her,
Well,
if
that
nothing
that
else.
that, that is a good point, isn't it? Because there is all the old fans will be keen to see them, but also there's a whole bunch of younger people who really love Oasis music, but have never had the chance to see them live.
I think for the young generation now, well, they represent a time before the internet. They're the last great thing before the internet came along, really, and they represent, I think, to teenagers now, a freedom that the people now don't necessarily have, in terms of, no phones. You go to the gig, the only way, you could describe it, but you didn't have any pictures of it back then, if you were just an
Mm.
ordinary fan. And I
Yeah,
think that's kind of enticing for young people.
I think you might be right. Chris, thank you very much for sharing those memories of your first encounter and later encounters with Oasis. Chris Floyd's book, Not Just Pictures, which does feature some of those iconic Oasis shots. Iconic is a word as banned, but I'm allowed to use it on this occasion. It's available now. Thank you very much, Chris Floyd.